$200,000 range. And then 24 hours later, Alexa Filippo, she went on ESPN and she was like, well, the players still aren't happy with that. And a lot of people are like, wait, why? What's going on? Like 1.1 million, that's a huge increase, because if you guys remember, the maximum salary in the WNBA for this past season was around $220,000. So obviously that's a massive increase if the max is going to go to 1.1 million. So fans were confused on that. And then Annie Costable.
Therefore, you're not the only one who is perplexed. The majority of WNBA fans are currently feeling that way. The maximum compensation offered by the league is $1.1 million. A day later, the players' union expresses dissatisfaction. Everyone on social media is asking the same question right away. Why would you decline a proposal that raises the maximum salary from about $200,000 to more than $1 million? However, this is the topic that hardly anyone is discussing. That enormous $1.1 million figure may not be as simple as it seems. There is much more to this story than just owners being cheap or players being avaricious.
Front Office Sports and basically said the $1 million offer isn't what it seems, and the 1.1 million wouldn't be their base salary. The base salary would still be that 850,000 number, and then you could get up to 1.1 million if you reach the different bonuses throughout the season. And honestly, you guys, these details do not matter. This does not matter. What has transpired over this last 72 hours doesn't matter at all.
Let's examine the events of the past few days in more detail. Initially, the WNBA made their offer public. They stated that the minimum compensation would be around $200,000, the average would be around $500,000, and the maximum would be $1.1 million. Looking at it like that, it's a hug.
I don't know who to trust, so I don't actually care so much this is the same kind of stuff that has been going on for the past 6 months. Clearly, both sides are trying to gain the approval of the public's opinion. They're trying to sway how the public feels about what's going on in the CBA negotiations. So was the WNBA lying and kind of boosting their story by saying that we're going to give the players 1.1 max salary? Sure, maybe. Or was the $1.1 million max salary increase falsely reported? Maybe they didn't report it properly and they said oh, it's going to be 1.1, but they didn't put in the caveats of what that actually means. And then on the other side,
therefore, the $1.1 million amount isn't the base pay that is guaranteed, according to that article. In reality, the base pay would be $850,000. Players would need to meet specific performance bonuses during the season in order to reach that $1.1 million. Suddenly, the bargain appears very different. Being a max player does not truly guarantee the entire sum. You must use incentives to earn that additional $250,000. It's becoming disorganized now. Two entirely different narratives are being presented to the public. The players' version seems like a bunch of smoke and mirrors, while the league's version sounds really generous. Fans are only caught in the center, attempting to determine what's really.
For the longest time have also come out and said the WNBA is just trying to put lipstick on a pig and this, that. We've heard everything from all sides. It doesn't change anything. It seems like they're at the exact same point in the negotiations, and I have no clue who to trust. And I don't trust anyone. To be honest, I do not trust what anyone is saying. And my mind is just tell me if there's going to be a season next year. And I feel like that's the opinion of most fans.
And see, this is the true issue with how everything is unfolding. It's clear that winning the PR battle is more important to both parties than actually reaching a private agreement. To make it appear as nice as possible, the league exposes their side of the deal. In order to maintain their leverage, the participants must then retaliate in public. Even when nothing has actually changed, every minor development is covered as if it were some huge breaking news. For the past 6 months, this has been the exact same routine. A leak, a response, some explanation, fury, and then it all begins again. Fans will become less interested in the specifics the longer this goes on.
They're watching other things on television. They're watching football. They're watching the NBA. They're watching college basketball. And they're basically saying, go ahead, do your thing. You guys can argue and figure it out or don't figure it out. Just kind of let me know if there's going to be a season. And that's just kind of how I feel at this point in time. I think it would be a waste of my time to share with you guys the details that are being shared because I don't know if any of it's true. And We don't know what the WNBA players want. The WNBA players have never once come out and said, we want this max salary, we want this revenue share.
Just consider our current location on the calendar. January is here. Right present. Football dominates the sporting world. College basketball is beginning to heat up, and the NBA is still going strong. All of the casual fans have moved on since the WNBA season ended 4 months ago. The only people who are actually paying attention to these talks have already decided. You've got one group that says the WNBA has never made a profit, so the players are asking for way too much. Then you have another group that's going to back the players no matter what they ask for, even if it's not realistic. Neither of these groups is changing their opinion based on whether the max is 1.1 million or 850K plus bonuses, 0.850K plus bonuses. You have to wonder, then, who they are still attempting to persuade.
There has been rumblings, like Kelsey Plum did an interview where she said, like, we want 50% of the revenue sharing, just like the NBA has. So that seems to be the number. I don't think there's any way that they get that, especially during this CBA. And I also think that there's certain camps right now with WNBA fans. I feel like there's a camp who believes that the WNBA hasn't profited in forever, and they think the women are asking for too much, and they're just always going to kind of side with the WNBA and be like, the players need to be great.
Since the gamers' requests have been very ambiguous throughout, let's now discuss what they are genuinely requesting. The union has never made their precise demands known to the public. We don't know what their maximum compensation is. The revenue share proportion they are vying for is unknown to us. All of us are merely making educated guesses based on scan information. In that interview, Kelsey Plum expressed her desire for a 50% revenue share to equal what NBA players receive. We're having the completely other discussion about whether that's even feasible for a league that has been in the red for the majority of its existence, if that's indeed what they're going for.
So many episodes of the other off-season leagues that have been in the picture, and how pretty much everybody in the WNBA PA, or the people who are part of that committee, they are now all signed to one of these off-season leagues, and some of these leagues that could rival the WNBA. I will just say this. I don't think any of these off-season leagues succeed in the long run, like past the next few years, if the WNBA is not a thing. The players who are playing in these off-season leagues, the salaries that they're getting in these off-season leagues, the worth that the...
Here's what's making things even more difficult. There are numerous basketball leagues that have emerged during the off-season. For a 3-on-3 event, Unrivaled pays players 6 figures. Project B offers enormous payouts for 2 events. Although it still exists, Athletes Unlimited doesn't have many well-known members. The majority of the players on the negotiating committee have already committed to play in these other leagues. That raises a very important question. Do the players think they still require the WNBA as much as they once did? If they don't get exactly what they want, do they believe they have the authority to simply leave?
Leagues are determining that they are worth is because of how they play in the WNBA, and because of their brand that they've built because they play in the WNBA. And I do think if the WNBA ceases to exist, or if they skip a season, like, all this momentum is why the players are saying that they deserve more and they want their revenue share to go up as the years continue. Like, as the league grows, the WNBA wants their revenue share to also grow with the league so that they are earning money. But all of that comes off the back of the last 2 seasons that they've had.
Let's consider what would happen if the WNBA didn't have a season the following year. Every day that passes without a deal makes this scenario, which no one likes to acknowledge is possible, more plausible. The players lose their largest stage, to start. Only because the players establish their brands in the WNBA do any of these new leagues succeed. Breanna Stewart is a WNBA champion and MVP, so Unrivaled can give her $250,000. Based on the rivalry between Angel Ree and Caitlin Clark that began in the WNBA, Project B is able to sell tickets. Those other leagues lose their star power if that basis is removed. Secondly, the momentum simply stops. The WNBA, with record ratings and viewership during Caitlin Clark's rookie year, it recently had 2 of its finest seasons ever. If they take a year off, all of that momentum simply disappears. Third, and perhaps most importantly, the players who sustain the most injuries are the ones we never learn about. Superstars like Stewie and A.A. Wilson are not the cause. Their international deals and sponsorships will be acceptable to them. It's the third or fourth year player on a minimal contract who is merely attempting to establish herself. Unrivaled isn't calling her. Her career might end if the WNBA closes.
Quickest growth that we've seen in the WNBA. If you halt all of that, and I've been one who has said this from the beginning, if you halt all of that and for some reason lock out this season or strike this season, I think you lose all of your leverage if that happens. And I do think if the WNBA didn't happen and Project B ended up being, like, Project B is completely different from the WNBA. They're playing in 2-week tournaments and traveling around, and it also seems
This is when things start to get a bit personal for me, because I believe their management of these discussions reveals a lot about their grasp of timing and leverage. Your value is determined by the market in any type of negotiation, whether it be for a job, a commercial agreement, or anything else. It has nothing to do with how hard you've worked or what you believe you deserve. It has to do with what someone is genuinely willing to pay you at this moment. The WNBA players are enjoying their best 2 seasons ever. Attendance, ratings, and sponsorship deals have all significantly increased. That is really physical leverage. However, it's also transient. Everything depends on momentum, which can vanish in an instant.
they're more worried about kind of the spectacle of it all and making it a really cool show and entertainment value and the streaming platform. And then Unrivaled obviously is 3v3. They would have to change to 5v5. They would have to get a completely different setup and everything. They play on a shortened court. Like it's not true basketball. Like AU is the closest thing to true basketball, and that league is hanging on by a thread.
I mean, consider it this way. I might actually accept a shorter, less expensive term now if I'm negotiating a contract, and I'm very certain that my value will only increase over the course of the following year.
Why?
So that when I have even more clout, I can return to the table sooner. That is simply wise business. You're placing a wager on yourself. However, if I believe that my value is at its highest point right now, and there's a genuine possibility that it will decline, I must make every effort in this negotiation because that similar opportunity might not exist in a year. What is the WNBA then participants in? Are they at a pinnacle that might not stay? Or are they just at the beginning of this enormous expansion where their value will continue to rise?
Build their names, build their likeness, build their career, keep the momentum going, and keep the WNBA going because they're also under the NBA umbrella. And a lot of people have argued like the NBA shouldn't be owning 50% of the league, but the NBA also has the ability to truly help the WNBA as well. So when I was thinking about this and the negotiations and things that I've done for certain jobs in my career, there is kind of two ways that you can go about it where you know it's a career builder. And, you know, maybe there's something in the CBA. If the CBA is supposed to be...
It is really simple to argue that things will continue to grow. Caitlin Clark's second season is about to begin. The competition with Angel Ree is still fierce. New teams are joining the league, which is growing. The agreement for media rights will be enormous. It makes sense to wait for a better contract, even if doing so puts you at risk of a lockout if you think all that stuff would result in even higher ratings and more money. However, the opposing viewpoint is also compelling. The rookie season of Caitlin Clark was a once-in-a-lifetime event. The league had never witnessed anything like the frenzy surrounding her. That can't be simply repeated. The novelty will fade. Additionally, the players will suddenly have far less leverage than they do now if ratings even slightly decline the next season. And there's the NBA's part in it all. The NBA and the club owners share ownership of the WNBA. Many claim that the NBA has too much power, and perhaps they are correct, but the NBA also provides them with resources, venues, and a degree of reputation that would be extremely difficult to match on their own. To be honest, none of these new leagues are attempting to replace the WNBA on a 5-on-5 basis over the entire season. 3-on-3 is unmatched. Project B is not so much about basketball as it is about entertainment. They possess the necessary infrastructure and the expertise gained from doing this because it's difficult to simply construct from scratch. Therefore, if there isn't a season, you lose out on a year of Clark's prime, the rivalries subside, and all of your newly acquired casual viewers will find something else to watch. Additionally, the media will start portraying the WNBA as failing instead than flourishing. In all honesty, the entire public relations struggle they are currently engaged in is futile. The ardent supporters have already chosen a side. They're trying to win over casual fans who aren't even interested in these stuff. All they want to know is whether or not there will be games to watch. I believe they will reach an agreement immediately at the deadline. Each side depends on the other. However, I've witnessed enough of these situations to understand that occasionally everyone loses and ego triumphs. The league has currently offered a sizable rise, but the specifics are unclear. The supporters are simply fed up with everything, and the players want more but haven't stated what it is. I don't believe anyone's account of what happened. Even though everyone has a different goal, I still believe that a settlement is reached in the end.